Joysticks and sliders. It's a plugin for After Effects. I'm going to spend 2 minutes showing you how to do it really simply, just the basics, and then I'll spend about 20 minutes going into some details. So the basics are this. You take the first 5 keyframes, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you go right, left, up, down, and then you bind those. So we're going to select this, and I'm going to switch over to joysticks. I'm going to press new joystick. You name your new joystick whatever you want, click OK, and then you have this new joystick, which I will then grab, move it out of the way, okay, and then where I move this controller, that moves. That's the basics. You can also do a lot of other really cool things with it. For example, you can bind multiple things to it. And so I'm going to go back to joysticks and sliders. I'm going to unbind that. And then I'm going to come in to this. I'm also going to add a rotation. And let's do a scale. And so now I can come in, and when I move it to the right, let's have it rotate a little bit. Whoop. When I move it to the left, I'll have it rotate the other direction. When I move it up, let's have it get bigger. When I move it down, let's have it get smaller. And the trick is that you can't have blank things, and so I'm going to copy the origin point there. And then I'm going to copy the origin point there. Okay, and then I can take all of those again, select the keyframes I want to bind them back to that. And now when I move it, it rotates as you go back and forth, and it gets bigger or smaller as you go up and down. Now let's get into some detail. Okay, I want to take you through how to do joysticks and sliders, which is a plugin that I use all the time in Adobe After Effects. Joysticks and sliders, what it does is it links up different keyframes, a bunch of different keyframes, to a joystick. And so you can see that this thing is kind of like turning. This isn't 3D. What I've actually done here is I've gone in and I've created these controllers, right? And so I can take this control over here, and I can move it left or right or up or down, right? And I can take this control right over here, and I can make the eye move around. And those two will move independently of each other. But what this is actually doing is when this moves to the right, it's engaging scale, it's engaging position. This curvature here is bending. When I move it up, okay, it's a different scale. And so all of those things are controlled with this one controller. So let's jump over to Illustrator. Okay, what you can see here is that I've got all of these different pieces, and I'm just going to put them together like that. Okay, I've named them, and then I can push them because I am using a program called Overlord from Battle Axe, and I can push them to a new composition. So let's do that now. I'm going to jump over to After Effects. I'm going to create a new composition here, and I'm going to use Overlord to pull a selection from AI. So it brings all that stuff over. Each one is its own shape layer. Okay, and I'm just going to kind of basically show you what's going on here. For let's hide the shadow here. Okay, the basics are this. I'll just show you the basics really fast. So I'm just going to use one of these circles. Let's go with eye outside, eye inside. Okay, so we'll take these two circles. I'm going to do position and scale. Okay, and then I'm going to have the inside one parented to the outside one. Okay, now you want to zoom in by pressing the plus key. Okay, and the way that it works is the first 5 keyframes that you put down will be linked to the joystick. Okay, and the first keyframe is when the joystick is in the center. The second keyframe is when it's to the right. The third keyframe is when it's on the left, and then it goes up and down, right? So center or origin, right, left, up, down. Okay, and so I'm gonna take these two. I'm gonna hit U, so we can see both of our exposed keyframes. I'm gonna go to the next keyframe, and I'm gonna move this to the right. So as I move this to the right there, Okay. And then I'm going to scale it. So it scales down, move it further to the right. I'm just going to move it all the way over to the edge here. Okay. And then I'm going to adjust the position of that as if it's kind of like recessed in a little bit. Okay. And I might make it a little bit thinner as well, just so I can recess it a little bit further. Okay. Then I'm going to go all the way to the left. And so you can basically kind of just switch these out, right? I'm going to leave my scale, and I'm going to move this over all the way to that side like that. And then where my keyboard go? I'm going to move this over to the inside like that. But I still need, even if no change is happening, I still need a keyframe on each of those 5 positions. So I'm just going to add a keyframe on those 2. Okay. Then I'm going to come back here, and I want to put it back in the center so that I can move it up. So I'm going to grab here, and I'm going to hold Shift and grab that. And let's jump over to joysticks and sliders. And there's this really nifty button on whatever you have selected. It'll make a copy of the first keyframe. And so I'm just going to hit Origin there, and it puts everything back in the front. Okay, so now I'm going to move it up. So let's go up like this. And then I'm going to come back here, and it looks like I did 59% on the scale. So I'm going to do 59% again, just so it's consistent. Move it up a little bit further. Okay, and let's see what we did on the other one. 45. So I'm going to come over here. Oh no, that was position 88. Okay, so we'll go 88. Oops, but I wanted to do it on this one, 88. And then we'll move it up. Move it down. There we go, like that. Great. Okay, so boom, 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 boom. Okay, and now we need to do down. So I'm just going to keep everything the same. Just change the position to be down here. And then I will adjust the location of that to be up here like this. Okay. And then we have, and we want the scale to stay the same. So click, click. So now we've got a keyframe on frames 0 through 4. So the first 5 keyframes. I'm just going to check here. Okay. If I want to, I can parent these other 2 things. Okay. So I'm going to parent this one to that one. I'm going to parent this one to this outside. So they'll go with it. Great. Okay. So then I can come in and I can select these keyframes, and I can come over here, and this button says that you want to create a new joystick. And so I'm going to click on that button. It's going to give me a little dialog box, and I'm going to call this robot. Click OK. Okay, and those keyframes have now disappeared, and 2 new layers have showed up. Okay, one is this little dotted box, and one is this controller. I like to move the dotted box out of the way. So I'm going to move it out of the way like that. And then I don't need to do anything with that dotted box anymore, so I can lock it. And now this controller will move things around for me. And you'll notice that it's kind of smooth, right? And so I can change these positions. It's going to get a little bit weird in the corners, because what it's actually doing is it's mixing what happens on the x-axis, side to side, and what happens on the y-axis, up and down. Okay, and so since we scaled things on the x-axis and then scaled things on the y-axis, when we go to the upper right-hand corner, it just scales both the x and the y, so it doesn't mix that well. Sometimes it mixes well depending on what you're doing. Okay, now I'm going to go in and I'm going to say that's looking pretty good. Okay, I'm going to put this back at 0, 0, and you can keyframe this by just going to position. Okay, you can put wiggle expressions on it so it drifts around a little bit. I'll just show you that really fast. So I can Alt click, and let's just type in wiggle, and let's say every second, why don't you move 200 pixels, because this thing is 200 across. It's actually 400 across, so 200 to the left and 200 to the right, and up and down. And then it'll just kind of move around, right, randomly. And I don't really like that too much, because anytime it goes diagonally on this particular one, it's going to look a little bit weird. So you can kind of, you know, we could separate dimensions here on thing and just wiggle on X if we want. Okay, and then it'll just flick back and forth, kind of randomly. Okay, cool. So you can use the controller like that if you want. I'm gonna just turn this off so that we can just have it at 0, 0. Okay, so let's go back here to the start. And let's look at what else we can do. We've got these seams, okay? I've got these 3 different seams, okay? And they are just a path with vertices, or in Illustrator you'd call those anchor points. And so they're just a path with 3 anchor points, or in After Effects, 3 vertices. So I'm going to come in and I am going to I'm going to look into these, and I'm going to go into content. I'm going to find the name of the thing, and then I'm going to turn path, the keyframe on for path. Okay, and so I'm going to find the shape, and then I'm going to turn on the path. So not only can you change the location or the scale or the opacity or anything else with one of these controllers, you can also have it do shape tweens. Okay, so we're just going to do something simple right now. I'm going to grab those 3, and I'm going to hit U to collapse them, so I just have those keyframes, so I can deal with them all at the same time. Okay, and so when it moves to the right, okay. Now here's another trick that is kind of nice sometimes. I'm going to go to this joystick, okay, and I'm going to choose Robot Turn, and I'm going to unbind or unlink all of these. Okay, and when I do that, if we hit Command A and U, you'll notice that it put all the keyframes back. And I like doing that because then you can tell what's happening when you move the joystick to the right or to the left or up or down or whatever, right? And so all of those are back. Without that, it's still controlled by the controller. So now the controller isn't controlling anything because we unbound all the keyframes. And we can link those right back up by just pressing the bind on any selected layers. Okay, so I'm going to go back down here, and let's go to the right. I'm going to grab this first one, and I'm going to hold Shift while I deselect that, and then Shift again. And I'm just going to move this over maybe to the outer edge of that. Okay, and let's grab the next one. I'm just going to move this over. Whoops. Shift click. Move that over, and I'm just going to kind of hold that there. Grab the last one. Move that over to where I want it, right about there. Okay. Then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So it's going to move to the left. We'll grab this and we'll move it all the way over to the left. And you can be as precise or as imprecise as you'd like. Obviously, the more precise you are, so that would be all the way out to the outside edge, the more accurate it's going to look. Okay. Now, when it goes up, nothing really changes. So I'm going to grab these 3. I'm going to hit Origin in my little joysticks and sliders thing. For some reason I didn't grab all 3 of them. There we go. Hit Origin. Okay. We'll go to the next keyframe, and we'll hit Origin again. Okay. And so now that's what it looks like when it goes to the left. That's what it looks like when it goes to the right, and then up, and then down. Okay. And so then I can bind all those things back together, right? And so you can continue to do that until you have this controller. Okay. Now, I have this middle eye. Okay. And I want to move that independently of the other thing. So I'm going to do 2 things with this. I'm going to use a joystick to have the eye move around, and then I'm going to use a slider to increase or decrease the size of the pupil. Okay, so I'll show you how to do both of those things. Okay, so first off, though, I want to grab all the layers that have anything that we want to link to these joysticks. So I'm just holding Shift and clicking all those layers, making sure I hit everything. Okay, and then I'm going to put that back on Robot Turn. Okay, and once that links back up, I can grab this controller, and now my line also bends. So that's a shape tween. It's not turning, or anything. What it is doing is it is bending. It's actually shape tuning. It's changing the shape of the path with this controller. So very cool. Okay, so now I have that. Now let's do this eye here. Okay, so I'm going to come in here. I can just hide this. I can just hide this guy that I don't need anymore. So let's Shy Guy that guy. All right, and then let's Shy Guy a few more of these that we're not going to need, just so we can focus on this. So inside, outside. We did those three. And that one. And that's great. Okay, so I'm going to grab, that's the middle one, I1. That's the outside one, I2. Okay, so I1 is linked to I2. So I'm going to grab both of these, hit P for position. I'm going to go back home, right? If I need to zoom in, I can press plus to see all those keyframes. I need the first 5 keyframes. I'm going to turn position on there. Okay, and then I'm going to move it over. Oops. So then I'm going to forward 1, right? And the first one is to the right. Go all the way to the right. Okay, and then I'm going to go further to the right with this one. Okay, and then we'll go all the way to the left. Okay, and then we'll go further to the left with that one. Okay, and then we'll go all the way up. So I can just put this back at 0 and 0, or hit that origin button. Okay, and then I'm going to go up and up. Okay, and then we'll go down like that, and then down some more, like that. Great. Okay, so we have up, down, and right. Okay, so then I can grab these guys. Whoop. Okay, grab those 5 keyframes. I'm going to hit the new joystick button, and I'm going to name this Robot Eye Look, or whatever you want to call it. Okay, zoom back out here. Okay, and then it creates 2 more things. So I'm going to grab the box on the outside, move that over, and once that's moved, then I can lock it. Shy Guy it, I don't need it anymore. And now I can use the controller to have it look wherever I want. Now again, if I hit those corners, it kind of causes some problems, right? And so you can go up and down. Now this one, it's okay to do diagonal because we didn't change the shape of anything. And so it works pretty well. You can have that kind of look around, right? And it still is linked. It's parented to those other layers, right? And so as I use this other controller, I can still go in and do that. Cool. Okay, so now I want to create a slider where I can increase or decrease the size of that middle kind of pupil, right? And so I'm going to come in, I'm going to go to I1, and I'm going to choose scale, and I'm just going to do 2, okay? And so I'm going to go from here, and then the next keyframe, I'm just going to make it bigger, okay? And then I'm going to grab those 2 keyframes, because on a slider, you just need 2 positions. And I'm going to switch from the joysticks tab to the sliders tab. And then I can come over here, create a new slider. Okay, and I'll call this pupil size. Okay, now this works a little bit differently in that I now have this, and I can come over here, and I've got this slider where I can increase or decrease the size of that pupil, up or down, right? But I can also grab this, and I can go back to my joystick, okay? And there's this button that says Create UI Sliders, okay? And it creates this like slider control. So I can kind of move that where I want it. I can just move it, you know, I'll just put it right here for now. That's fine, okay? And then I don't need to move that anymore, so I can lock that down. Okay, I can rename this to whatever I want. So I can come in and use my text tool. And I can call it pupil size if I want. Okay, and then I can lock that down. And then the slider, it is just going to move back and forth And it'll go smaller or bigger, right? And you've got some slider limits, and you can change the arrow size to be bigger or smaller or whatever. And it's, you know, you can say whether you want negative values or not. Negative value will just go as much as you did away from the origin in the negative direction. So now I can do that. So I can make this go bigger or smaller. All right, so let's do a little bit of animation here. I'm going to shy guy those layers that I don't need anymore. Okay. I've got a controller for this now. So I'm going to take these three guys. Let's go position. And let's turn our position on. And robot eye look. Okay. And then there's a middle. Come over here. And let's have it look to the left. And then we'll have the slider get bigger. And then we'll go here. And we'll have them look to the right. And we'll have it shrink. Okay, and then as we look to the right, let's say we start about here, and we'll start looking as we turn the head. So I'm going to just adjust this keyframe like that, and then we'll finish that way. Whoop. Okay, so that's kind of how you'd kind of do that. So you can kind of control that. We can put some wiggle expressions on there. We could, you know, do all kinds of different things. So once we get over here, we can have a look back. And then have a look up. Come over here and have a look down. And have our slider control get a little bit larger. While the head turns slightly. Okay, and so you can see all of that is just happening with these controllers. You can use the sliders over here, you can use that, but what it's doing is you can have one controller control multiple things. So if I jump over to this other one where I've linked up a bunch of stuff, right? I've got the shadow moving around, I've got like glows going on that can change the color of things, and all of that can happen because you can link any keyframe to these joysticks. Okay, so just to recap, you do the first four keyframes, first five keyframes, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, okay? And you go origin, center of the joystick, right, left, up, down. And then you link all of those to the thing, to the joystick, and then you press the joystick button, and it'll create that. For sliders, you just do 2 keyframes, where you want it in the middle, and where you want it on the right side extreme, and it'll slide in between those 2 keyframes. Now you can have one slider control a number of things as well. So if I wanted to come in here, back to this one that has a slider, I can grab this guy, go back over to my joysticks and sliders here, and let's say that I also want, I don't know, for whatever reason, I want this green layer to go transparent when the eye gets bigger or smaller. Okay, so let's find that green layer. Where are we, sir? There we go. Okay, and then I hit T for opacity. Okay, and I'm going to go 100%, slide to 0%. Then I'm going to grab both of those things, and I'm going to attach them to the pupil size slider. Okay, and now when I slide the pupil size, you'll notice that the pupil size gets bigger and it gets transparent. So you can link multiple things to the sliders as well. So anything and any number of things that you want to put on a joystick or a slider, you can link all those up. And the nice thing about it is once you do that, you can control tons of stuff with one controller. Just imagine if you wanted to turn the head of this robot eye, and every time you turn the head, you had to go in and do the scale on several different layers, the position on several different layers, you know, and keep track of all that, the size of things, and make sure you're doing all of that correctly, and make sure that it links up, parents and all that stuff. Instead, you just do that one time for all of the extremes, center, right, left, up, down, and then you link it all up to a joystick. And anything you want to move independently, you just do a different joystick. So this eye has its own joystick, and this head has its own joystick, right? And the pupil size has its own slider. Okay, so that's how you do it. If you want to see more of this stuff, then go to CoreyKerr.com, and I've got lots of different video tutorials, bell, thumbs up, all that jazz. Leave a comment, and we'll see you guys next time.